Welcome to Dykes on Disc. Ella. Ella and Gabby pulled out of Tybee Island, Georgia at 9 a.m. Saturday morning. The day was full of promise. After Gabby had her morning meds and coffee, she was good to go. With Ella at the wheel, they winded their way west, following US 80. Gabby had tried to medicate while Ella drove, but Ella had cut that short. She asked Gabby not to smoke while she was driving. It seemed like a reasonable request. After all, Ella had agreed to travel with her to California. I mean, really, how do you repay someone for that? So, yes, dear, was the reply to Ella's request. Gabby settled back in the passenger seat and took in the sights. Georgia, she noticed, is a lot like Florida, except with red clay for dirt and fewer palm trees. All the other trees look alike when you're speeding by at 45 miles an hour. Sure, they would slow down to 35 an hour for the smaller towns. Then one could actually read the signs on buildings. For instance, she saw Claxton Bakery, the ones that make that yummy fruitcake. Vidalia, Georgia, the Onions place. That's it. There isn't a lot to see. They weren't taking this trip to see things. They were going somewhere. So the two traveled along peacefully, making progress towards California. Gabby had it all worked out. She had figured the rate, time, and distances and came up with approximately 350 miles a day. If they both drove 3 hours a day, they could make that easily. Gas was figured, and where all the state park campsites were along their route. The AAA triptychs were printed out. They were good to go. Right. Ella was focused on driving again today. She didn't care much for Gabby's beloved triptychs. Reading those maps just confused her. They were going to get lost. She just knew it. How much farther? She asked Gabby. Well, she started, looks like 137 miles to go. I guess since we're not going 50 miles an hour like I had figured, we're not going to get as far, said Gabby. She added hesitantly, I'll start looking for somewhere to stop. Sure enough, they found Lake Pines RV Park. It was friendly and peaceful. They made camp. Ella put ice on top of the 12-pack in the cooler, and Gabby administered her medication inside. Tomorrow they would start out early and probably be just about where they needed to be, reflected Gabby. Besides, they didn't truly have a timetable. They had nowhere to be and all day to get there. It was a good feeling, free for a while. The scenery as they drove the next day was very similar to that of the day before, only now there were more trees and hills. They were definitely out of Florida now, thought Ella. I sure hope the transmission holds in this thing. She was very often thinking of the possibility of disaster, but less for some reason now that she had met Gabby. Still, she hoped for safe travels. Ella was at the helm again and Gabby was navigating. There wasn't a lot to see. They passed through Selma, Alabama, and Gabby thought it was sad to see such a famous town look so depressed. It must have been something else back in the day. Not anymore, though. On they went, following US 80 west. Hun, Gabby started, the skies are looking dark. I think we better find some place to stop. What do you think? Yes. I'll see what I can find. Well, it seems there's a state park near Morton. We should be there in a few miles. Let's see. Okay, take Highway 13 south, and there will be signs. Okay, baby, said Ella. What kind of signs? I don't know. This is my first time here. I don't know what kind of signs. All right. You sound hungry to me. I could tell. Gabby took a breath. You're right. I need to eat these Fritos. Thank you. This is my favorite kind, too. Gabby dug her hand into the bag and pulled out a fistful of sweet honey mustard corn chips. The landscape was all trees now, tall pine trees to the right and left of the highway, as far as you could see. Green, lush forest and rolling hills. Then off to the right was a huge sign which read, Roosevelt State Park. "There's a sign!" yelled Gabby. Sure enough, there it was, Roosevelt State Park, Mississippi entrance. They drove for what seemed like 5 miles into the forest. Finally, they came to a guardhouse. Ella ran out to it. When she got back to the truck, she explained, "The computers aren't working. We can go down and pick out a site, and then I'll walk back up and see if the computers are working then." "All right," agreed Gabby. "Let's go." A light rain was beginning to fall as they drove down the steep 45-degree hill to find a leveled-off drive. It wound around an oval park with campers in the middle and around the edges. They drove out of the oval onto another driveway a few feet up. They found a spot that was bordered on the right by a vacant lot. There was a hill about 10 feet tall on the left and in the rear. It was ideal. It was also starting to rain harder. Ella backed the trailer onto the concrete pad like a pro. She dumped out of the truck and headed for the guardhouse. Gabby felt proud to be with Ella. She was going out in this wet weather, and the trailer still needed to be hooked up and set up. The jack stands needed to be put in place. If this space is available, she thought. Might as well take my medication while I'm waiting, she decided. She couldn't remember what Mississippi's laws were. She knew that it said decriminalized on the normal web pages, whatever that meant. It had to be a good thing. Gabby sat and watched through the rain-stained glass. The skies darkened and the thunder rolled in the clouds overhead. She looked up towards the top of the pine trees. It had to be as tall as a football field, taller, she thought. It looks like it's raining harder up there than it is down here, she marveled. She looked back down to the ground and up the drive. There was Ella. She was coming back. "Whoa," said Ella. "It's wet out there." Yes it is," answered Gabby. "Well, are the computers up?" "No, but the good news is that we can stay here and check in the morning." "Great! This is a nice spot, honey, what I can see of it anyway." "As soon as the rain lets up, I'll get out and get us hooked up, and we can get the stabilizers stationary," assured Ella. "Sounds like a plan, Stan," agreed her relaxed partner. When the rain stopped, they got to the business of opening the awning, connecting the screen, and dumping ice on the 12-pack. The evening was quiet except for the occasional frog and the drip, drip, dripping of the rain from the trees. They were visited by fireflies, too. What a treat! Tiny gold orbs twinkling in the dark like tiny dancing fairy lights. Later, the two found themselves exhausted and happy, laying in the dark in the trailer that was all their own, out in nature, on the road, having an adventure with Ella. Ella is remarkable, thought Gabby. She turned over in the little bed, embracing the beautiful woman next to her. "What was that for?" questioned Ella. "I'm just happy." She smiled in the dark and pulled Ella closer. Her right hand slipped down and caressed Ella's hip, squeezed and moved down, around, between. Ella whispered in Gabby's ear, "You lesbian." We hope you have enjoyed this disc. The author invites your feedback on Facebook. Thanks for listening.